Hello everyone, it's your boy Bradley Q, back again with another video on a Reddit post that seemed to have attracted some pretty interesting discussion. So, I want to start out by actually thanking the person who made this post, because today has been just kind of really boring. It's been rainy and nasty outside for just almost all the day until maybe a couple, like, just half an hour before sundown, honestly. And haven't really been able to do much besides just stay inside, clean up, get some schoolwork done that I guess I had to do would have been doing sometime in the future. So it's actually kind of nice to actually have something to talk about here. And I'm just going to throw the post up here for all of you to look at before we go further.
So a little bit of context, my story takes place in a single, massive metropolis divided into two sections, the upper and lower city. The upper city is kind of a utopian society, large, shiny skyscrapers, everything's nice and orderly. The lower city is much more dystopian, heavily industrialized, rampant crime, violence, and very grungy and dirty. The two sections are separated by a massive wall, which only has one entrance gate, which is only accessible by a train bridge, and is well defended. One of the main characters attempts to enter the upper city by stowing away on the train. He manages to get through the gate, but is ultimately caught and sent to jail for 6 months, where on his release, he would be deported back beyond the wall. When designing the prison break sequence, I was inspired by the Ender series. Quick explanation. Skip if you already know what happens. The MC is sent to prison in an overly harsh sentencing for pretty much nothing so that the Empire can use prisoners essentially as a slave labor force for construction on the Death Star. The prison's floor is electrified as a way to keep the prisoners in line. Ender inspired the idea in my work where, after the MC is imprisoned, the prisoners are required to work in some way that benefits the city and its residents, and they are paid with food and other necessities. Essentially, their freedom is taken away, but they are worked to benefit society, rather than simply lying in bed, living off of the people's money, leeching off it instead. Now the big difference is in execution. In Ender, the prisoners were very much just a slave labor force, but I don't want my work to imply that. So what are people's thoughts on the idea of prisoners having to work each day for their food, bed, and other things, benefiting the society that they leached off of by committing their crimes, instead of just being imprisoned and doing nothing of benefit, living off of the people's money? And if anyone has any kind of legal background, why isn't this done in the real world?
So, to the person who wrote the post, I don't know who you are, but based on the fact that your first time ever hearing about the concept of prison labor was a Star Wars tie-in product available on the Disney Channel for watching. Oh, Disney Plus. How many times streaming services did that? Whatever, but based on that, and some of the answers you've given, I'm going to take a guess and say that you're probably in sort of an early stage of developing your understanding of just the world and just sort of how society and some things like this work. So, and I understand that. I've been in a bunch of time. I can remember a lot of times where I was kind of like you, but at that time, and so I feel that I decided I'd record a video since it's easier for me to just get my thoughts out this way on a complicated thing like this, and I'm going to try and be a bit more helpful than I guess some of the snarky comments you've been getting. So something I'm saying just in your replies to other people's comments on your post is that you don't intend for this story to be about modern politics, and you seem to be feeling a little bit frustrated in that people keep bringing modern politics up. And I can understand that. However, if you don't want to write a story involving modern politics, and you don't want people to be talking about modern politics in their replies to you, then you do actually have to get an idea of what is modern politics. Because prison labor is in fact a very, very politically charged topic in today's world. And if you write a story where prison labor and its morality is a very important thing to the plot, then it just is going to be political. There isn't any two ways about it. And I don't and I feel that while it might seem annoying that people keep bringing it up when you say you don't want to when you say that again you don't want to have people bring it up, but you could have just Googled prison. You asked in your post why prison labor isn't something that has been done in the real world, and if you just Google the topic, then the first result would basically be, probably be about prison labor being a thing in the real world. And yeah, let me just Google right now. And first article: hidden prison labor web linked to food from Target, Walmart, and a bunch of other food brands. It is something very much known about by most people, and if you write this book, then it's something that most of your audience is going to know about too. So they are already going to have their ideas about prison labor and stuff that you should keep in mind when you are writing this. If you're going to be writing about prison labor, then you actually have to consider the specific cultural context of the references you're using. You say that you got the idea for how the prison labor scheme in your story will work. It's based off the prison labor scheme in Andor, the one that's used by the Empire. In case you aren't aware, the Empire in Star Wars is based off Nazi Germany, and the specific prison labor scheme they do, which they use to make weapons of mass destruction, is based off the real world Nazi Germany's use of prison labor to create weapons of war. So if you do not, under any circumstances, want to make your prison labor scheme in your book look anything like Andor, not in any way that resembling it in any way, unless you're going to make it so that the use of prison labor and the society that uses it is portrayed as evil, because people are going to see the scheme from your books. They're going to see it's reminiscent of Andor and Nazi Germany, which is what again the system Andor is based off of, and they're going to presume that it's meant to be evil. There's no way around it. And so don't make it look like Andor, but don't stop there, because there is a very, very long historical context of prison labor, or just general forced labor, being used by very, very evil regimes, and just you might just want to look at some history for free, because there's this essentially, as if you want to portray this as a good or at least not super bad thing, then you'll essentially need to look up just a lot of maybe just honestly quite heavy topics just to make sure that your thing does not instantly resemble them. And I don't honestly know. I don't know if that's really good at wise idea. But it's your choice if you really want to. If you really aren't dead set on this. Well, I wouldn't recommend that you go trawling for all the history books and political and both science books and sociology books to see all the different awful examples of forced labor and prison slavery that have existed over time, and so also that you can create your own new version of special prison labor that won't be associated with any of these. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do work research into this history and this society. On the contrary, you actually kind of need to do a bunch of that, even if you don't have any intention of talking about anything political, because just reading through the world building you've described, there are some issues that people are going to pick up on. People in the replies to your post have talked about the upper city leeching off the lower half, and in your replies you have denied that that's the case. Like here you said, the upper city is not leeching off the lower house. They are two separate societies just in one location. And here's the thing. That is quite clearly false you can tell that is false by looking at the way you have described the two cities. So you say here, the upper city is a utopian society. Large, shiny skyscrapers, everything's nice and orderly. The lower city is much more dystopian, heavily industrialized, rampant crime, violence, and very grungy and dirty. And I guess to you that might not sound like it means anything. But here's the thing. Where is the upper city getting where is all the people in the upper city getting their products and necessities? Are they all poor? Because are they all just like are they all just destitute, holding out in withering, falling apart skyscrapers that are just meant to look nice? Because here's the thing. You say that the lower city is the one with all of the industrialization and stuff, but factories and industrialization isn't something that just happens when a place is bad or poor. In fact, it's a thing that industrialization happens because people need goods to survive. If the lower city is the place where all of the factories and the industry and the stuff that produces that you use to produce the stuff that society needs to function is where, then the lower city should be the one. Then why is the lower city poor? I mean, of course, there are obvious reasons. The reason for that is actually pretty obvious. The upper city, yep. But I'll just get to that in a second. So you said the upper city has large, shiny skyscrapers, and I'm guessing that those are office skyscrapers where people do just office jobs and general white collar stuff. You haven't stated that, but that is something people will understand to be the case, because that is how it typically is in the world, and pretty much every society that has ever existed. And so if but those sort of white collar jobs cannot exist, or not enough to sustain a society overall. And most of those jobs are in some way or another based around essentially administrating industry and production and those sort of things. Like I am someone who is studying agricultural engineering and stuff. I guess my thing is sort of a white collar job, but not really, since it's actually in practice it's going to involve me doing a lot of field work, but it's a but it's just the sort of thing here. If the only way for the upper city to be rich and have the money to keep everything maintained, and the lower city to be poor and stuff, is for the upper city to be leeching off of the lower city. That's just the way that it is. That is pretty much the context for how. That is pretty much how and I know that you're probably writing this because you've seen in shows and stuff and just general media and everything, where if a place is supposed to be poor and not very good, then it's going to be heavily industrialized and grungy and dirty. And if a place is supposed to be a good place, then it's clean and all nice, pretty skyscrapers and people all doing their thing without getting their products, without ever there ever actually being any industry or factories or production or just any of the real material, just all of that stuff that's dirty and people don't associate with being nice. But if you want to write about society, then you kind of have to just understand that. Now, I think at this part might be thinking something like, hey, you can't just do that. I wrote it this way. Wait, I did not write the upper city as being exploitative of the other half of the city, and that's how it is. But that's just the thing with you're creating speculative fiction. You can say that the upper half of the city is all rich and beautiful and shiny and prosperous, despite having literally no industry, and that in the upper city, the goods and services that people need to survive just magically appear inside pristine stores and gas stations. And meanwhile, the lower city is dark and grim, and it has factories that are all dirty and just produce dirty stuff, and products, but at no point is where are these products going actually ever discussed, and it has no money despite having and apparently there's no money being generated from tax revenue from the factories in the lower city, because presumably if the factories were generating revenue and that revenue was being taxed, and that would give them money to maintain stuff. And you can write it so that that's the way it is, but people are not going to believe it, because they're going to look because they're going to relate your society to the actual society they've seen, and they're going to make the obvious conclusion that the reason why the upper city is able to be like this is because of an unequal relationship. And I'm not saying that you can't make the concept of the upper city and the lower city work. But if you want it to work, you'll have to actually come up with a better idea of how these cities are, other than the upper city being all nice, other than the upper city all being somehow all being all white collar, no manual labor, no industrial jobs, and the lower city having all of the factory jobs and stuff like that, and all the industry and everything that you need to like produce products. And apparently that's supposed to be a sign of it being the morally corrupt place. Yeah. And that should take us to the part of the story that's getting a bunch of flack. The most flack of all, that is to say. So, as you've described, the upper city makes it illegal for people from the lower city to cross over into there. As you stated here, the protagonist attempts to like get into the upper city by stowing away on a train, and is caught, and he goes to jail, which is where all the prison labor stuff goes. And obviously this is getting a lot of flack from people, because people have pointed out that people ask you, why shouldn't people from the lower city be allowed to go into the upper city at all? And you've stated here, you've stated that you don't that you think the people in the upper city you want to keep. And okay, let's handle this. You stated here, neither. The point is that people who have lived a life of lawlessness tend not to follow the rule of law because of that sense of freedom. The upper city is orderly because people follow the law as they believe in. While the people illegally entering from the lower city are already breaking the law, and if allowed to go free, these are the precedent of, if they can't ignore the law, why can't someone else? And here you go on about immigrants. Dude, why are you complaining about people bringing up modern politics in response to your story when you're going to go on a complaint, when you're going to complain about illegal immigration? Just, what? If you don't want to discuss, then just, you probably shouldn't be bringing that up. And hell, hey, you say that if you say it, you're saying that the concept in your story is like illegal immigration. Are you surprised? Why are you surprised that people are drawing comparisons to modern politics? And honestly, quite frankly, are you sure? Are you sure you don't want to write about modern politics? Because you're kind of inviting it into there, and I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I mean, I don't really consider myself someone who wants to write specifically about modern politics, but I guess sometimes it's just something that can just work its way into my story, just because of I'm thinking about it, and I guess that kind of serves as inspiration. But if you're going to do that, then don't get mad when people relate modern politics to your stuff. So back to the rain thing. No, people do not commit crimes because they think that law is stupid and they like to run around breaking the law and stuff. That is not why. That is just not how crime happens. That's crime. That's ignorance. You need to read and learn and talk with people and actually figure this stuff out, because people in the real world are going to understand that people don't commit crimes just because they can, and so if people see that the upper city, which from your own description appears to be exploiting and leeching off of the people in the lower city, refuses to let people from the lower city in because they think that all the people from the lower city are lawless and criminals, then they're just going to assume the people from the upper city are just awful. And yeah, and you've stated here that my idea is that the people upper city didn't want anyone from the lower city entering at all, regardless of whether they bring crime or not. And the people who don't want their money being used to instill some sense of order or exercise control of the lower house, preferring it to be used to maintain and improve their own quality of life. Okay, so the upper city is exploiting the lower house for cheap labor and production, and apparently they're also keeping all of the tax money that presumably the operation of everything in the lower city just for themselves, and instead of actually providing the lower city with services, they're just keeping all the money to help themselves. The people in your upper city just seem worse and worse and worse and worse everything detail you give of them. So here's where we're at. You said that the society in the story isn't a dystopia, but it is a dystopia. It's an extremely stratified authoritarian state, divided between an elite class that gets to enjoy all of the resources, amenities, and protection, and all live good lives with nice jobs in their own well-protected enclave, while the rest of society while the rest of the people have awful jobs, crappy amenities, no protection from violence, and are prevented by force from ever being able to seek out a better life in the better parts of the world. There is no way around it. You can say people will identify it as a dystopia, and if you try to present it as something other than a dystopia, people are going to disagree. And that's just... So I feel that I wish I could just offer advice just to fix the concept, but I think you need to spend some time wondering this, you need to learn about a lot of things. I see that you're probably just starting to figure out about all these things and stuff, and that's good. You need to learn about what factors actually cause crime. Why are some places that what stuff actually makes what stuff actually contributes to a society functioning, and generally need to learn a lot just about politics and the real world and just all of that, and I have a feeling that when you start learning more and more about that stuff, you're probably going to start going back to the concept and seeing more and more things that you want to rework and change. And I guess that's just all I can really say for you right now. I hope that this sort of message, which to be fair is probably not the most well crafted because I'm just doing this on a whim and I want to get it out soon. I hope that this at least offered you like some guidance and help for your project. And I think this is a good part to just wrap up the video. I'm Bradley Q, and I hope this all made you well, and I'll also leave a link to the story I am writing. I haven't done much for it for a long time, but I am working on another installment. So if you want to see what I've written, you can look at that there. And and well wishes to you and everyone else who watches. See ya.